attractive Viking swordsman. Howdy everybody, Carla here, and this time I finally finished something that I said that I would actually finish. Yay me! I hope this will be a short video. Why can't they ever be short? I don't know, I hope this will be short. But anyway, this week I finally finished reading the new Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard book, The Hammer of Thor, which is the second book in the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard trilogy by Percy Jackson author Riordan. This is his Norse mythology series. If you haven't read it, go read it. You probably should have read the Percy Jackson and the Heroes of Olympus series first, but you can still glean enough from Wikipedia to actually read this one. It's really good. I really love it. I adored the first book, The Sword of Summer, and if anything, I think I like this one more. So I decided, hey, I'm going to review it for you guys. Hopefully it will be a quick review. I've written down a few notes that I just want to mention, but I guess we'll see because everything I touch ends up turning into the longest thing ever written and or recorded. So let's just get right to it, okay? So, reviewing.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
First, I'm gonna start with the plot, because there were parts in this book that I really liked and I found fast-paced and I was totally entranced in them, but then there were other parts where I felt like nothing was happening. I remember reading and being halfway through or so and thinking, nothing has happened. So, it started off slow. As much as I love Otis the Goat, I really did think that it started off a little bit slow. I think the first time when I felt that something was actually happening was when they go to Long Island. They have to deal with this bunch of really patriotic, democratic zombies in Long Island, or I don't know. I found that segment to be a little bit grating, a little bit too on the nose, really, and since I'm recording this on the day of the US election, by the way, so now that I have to mention democracy all over again, I'm like, oh, can I just not think about it for one day? It was funny. I do have to admit though, I really loved Jack's crush on the Skofnung sword. I thought it was hysterical. I really loved it. I almost wish that we could have heard the sword speak somehow, but I guess that's kind of the funny part of it, that the other sword can't really have any feelings. I don't know. But I really enjoyed that part. But then after that, after Blitzen obviously gets petrified in order to save him, they have to go to Alfheim. My favorite character is Hearth. I have been aching to see more of him and of his past and of his story since the first book came out. I was really hoping we would get to see that. And when they go to Alfheim, it just hit me so hard. I think that entire Alfheim sequence was most definitely my favorite part of the book. It was amazing. Not just learning more about Hearth, but just seeing Alfheim as a completely different world than any of the other 9 worlds that we've seen so far. Those little kernels of social commentary that Rick sort of drops in. The idea that elves are snobs, because of course they are. Elves are always snobs. I wonder if that is actually directly come from Norse mythology, but it feels like everybody just sort of assumes that elves are going to be the snobbish ones out of the 9 worlds. I don't know why that is, but I always find it funny. But still, it felt like, even though it felt like the affluent suburbs of Boston, it still had that magical feel to it, and it felt like it had a lot of tradition. His background, the story with his brother, the rune, the pain his father felt. I started wondering if maybe I was reading this the wrong way, because at parts I really did feel bad for his father. I mean, don't get me wrong, the man is an asshole, okay? He does not deserve anything from Hearth. But at the same time, he did lose a son, so I kind of have a little bit of feels for him. I don't know, I really love the entire sequence. I loved all the characters that were involved. I just loved the entire Alfheim part of the book. I thought it was the best part of the book by far. Then they move on to the Bifrost, where they have to look up Heimdall because they literally have no idea what to do next. So they're just going to look around and hope that something jumps out at them. It cracked me up. So of course, in that moment, they would go to the Bifrost and hope that it can give them a sign somehow. And they did find a sign, which cracked me up. We got Loki's sign, and it was so funny. Just the whole Bifrost sequence was great. I liked the way their core group sort of changed, because Hearth and Blitzen weren't there, but then Alex and Amir were there instead, and it's sort of a different dynamic. I adored that. It was great. I didn't care much for the whole bowling alley sequence. Even though I do like Asgard Loki, I think he's funny because he's trying to help Magnus, but he's a giant, so he doesn't really want to help Magnus. So he's going to sort of try to help them in a way that doesn't really help them, and he's funny, but I didn't really care for the whole bowling alley bit. I thought it was a little bit too cliche. Illusion break-in moments that they had for each of the participants. The only one I really liked was Sam's, because it was the first one and it was unexpected, but the other ones were like, yeah, okay, they're gonna get out of there somehow. I did like the giant bowling bag. That was so funny, and the fact that they had Blitzen designing a new bag that could shrink, which was genius, and Jack helping to make it and getting his name engraved and jumping up and down like a dolphin, and that was his way of embroidering into a giant bag. Literally giant. It's for a giant. Okay. I like that bit, but the bit in the bowling lanes itself I didn't really care much for. However, after that, when they actually got to the wedding, that was amazing. The whole wedding sequence was on point, especially the release of Loki. I thought it was great that Loki is now free, because of course this is the second book in a series, so you know, it's beginning, climax, and end. So this book had to be the climax, and of course the climax would be Loki actually getting free. Makes total sense. I like that he planted little moments around the entire group that would make them coincide in that place and have no choice but to be in that place with the sword so that they could free him. Also, I have to point out, yay for Viking wedding lore! I love Viking weddings. I've loved Norse mythology for a while, but I hadn't really gotten into Viking wedding lore until I started writing fanfic for How to Train Your Dragon. Excellent Viking wedding lore, and Rick got it right. I love the fact that yes, the bride can totally claim to have the hammer for the ceremony, and all that stuff is really, really great. Be sure to look it up. It's actually really, really interesting. Thumbs up for that, Rick. I loved it. I still don't know what I feel about Malcolm. I'm not entirely sure. I understand that he's being manipulated by Loki. That makes me feel bad for him. His family's not around anymore, and Loki's just brainwashing him into thinking that they can probably be with him again, and that's really, really sad. At the same time, you don't fucking do that to your own nephew! What the hell is wrong with you? You can't bring back your family if it will kill your nephew. Or destroy the world. That's just, it's not. Okay, so I don't know, I'm really conflicted about Randolph. I kind of hope he will die, because then he would sort of get to be with his family. But I hope he does have a redeeming moment in the end with Magnus, because I do think Annabeth's words to him about family being very important should go somewhere. It should have a good ending somehow. I don't know. And I also found the whole thing where Loki can manipulate his children into doing what he wants. That was very interesting. I'm not entirely sure if I'm convinced that Alex can actually resist him, because she seems to be like, oh, I totally was doing it on my own volition. I just wanted to psych him out or whatever. I'm not entirely sure. I think maybe she's not being quite as forthcoming as she should be. But either way, I find it interesting, and I can't wait to see how they resolve that, because it's going to be a huge deal. I love that they have to travel to Scandinavia now. I love it. It's very Heroes of Olympus of him And Rick went to Scandinavia recently. There's photos of that on his Instagram if you want to check them out. So of course he's doing research. Of course they're going to Scandinavia, and Scandinavia is just so... I've never been there, but I imagine it's so one with the elements in a sense, in that way, because Greece in Heroes of Olympus felt like, oh my god, we've gotten finally to the dawn of civilization. You know, this is the place. This is where it all started. Scandinavia is more nature, is more rawness, and I would love to see that contrast between Heroes of Olympus and what's going to be the Ship of the Dead in the last Magnus Chase book. But yeah, it makes total sense, and the bits on the boat in Heroes of Olympus were some of my favorite moments because they were team building moments, and my favorite thing about any novel is just seeing how the characters interact more than the plot itself. So if we can get lots of nice friendshipy moments on this Ship of the Dead or the ship, whatever ship they take to Scandinavia, I will love that, I'm sure. I heard a lot of hubbub about the last line of the book when I was still not reading it, because the book came out and I had to wait a bit for it to get here because I live in freaking Narnia. So I had to wait about a week for it to get here, and I had already seen on Twitter the comments about people freaking out about the last line. Personally, I kind of saw it coming. I don't know. As soon as I kind of put together the idea that they were going to Scandinavia, I'm like, maybe they can talk to Annabeth about it. And when he was already talking to Annabeth, I was like, she's gonna bring Percy in, isn't she? And of course she did. So I wasn't terribly surprised. I still loved it though, because I've been wanting Percy and Magnus to meet for the longest time, and it's gonna happen, and I love it. So that's about it for the plot, really. So now I'm gonna talk about the characters. The first one I want to mention because she was my favorite in the entire book. And she was really minor, but I loved her. I loved Inga. She is such a cutie. I love her. Oh my gosh, she's adorable. I could just picture her in my mind, and oh my gosh, she's so adorable. I love her. I want to see her again. I hope she's not gone for good. Seriously. But I loved her. I can't wait to see her again. I also really loved Heimdall and his phablet. Is that how you pronounce it? Phablet? I don't even know. Rick Riordan is how many years older than me, but he's got a better grasp on teen slang and whatnot, because I had no idea what a phablet was. Now it all makes sense. But I loved it. It makes total sense. I mean, this is a guy who's just standing there watching everything. Of course he's going to take pictures. Of course he's gonna want to take selfies with everything. That was hysterical. I loved it. I loved Heimdall. And I hope he comes up more. Seriously. I thought I wasn't going to like Sif. I'm so used to the Marvel version of Sif that almost anything else would be kind of disappointing in a sense. But I actually liked Sif. She's better than Aphrodite, for example, in the sense that she's not all about herself. She can actually help. So I thought she was cool. As I said before, the Alfheim part of the book was my favorite part, and that is in a huge part because Badass Hearth is badass. I mean, how badass was he in that sequence? He wasn't taking any shit from anybody. I loved it. I loved him, and also just learning his story gave me all the feels, you guys. So I was really glad that we got to see the badass side of him as well as the emotional side of him. He obviously loved his brother very much. He obviously feels like he disappointed his father in some way, but at the same time he also feels angry with his father. I really enjoyed seeing a look into his past and into his mind, and seeing him actually stand up for himself, which I had been waiting for since the first book, really. Hearth and Blitz's friendship, adorable. I mean, I loved how distraught Hearth was when Blitz got hurt and later on petrified. You always get the feeling that when Hearth left Alfheim, Blitz was sort of the only person to accept him for who he is. You could totally see it in this book, that bond that they have between them. Also the fact that Blitz would actually rather die than let Hearth go back to Alfheim and to that humiliation and to that mistreatment. I love them. They're the best. Now, the one thing that kind of depressed me about this book is that Hearth was so so worried about Blitz that it sort of colored his friendship with Sam darker, because he felt that Sam was being selfish in bringing them into the mission, and of course he felt that Blitz getting hurt was actually Sam's fault. That made me sad because I want all of them to be friends. I just want my babies to be friends forever. But at the same time, I can sort of understand it because Hearth and Blitz have been friends for so long, and he's only really known Sam for a few months, so it makes sense in my mind, but I can't wait in the third book until they finally make up and become friends again. I hope that that is one of the character moments in the boat that we get to see in the next book, hopefully. I need them to be friends. For my sanity. Please, Rick, I need them to be friends. I really like how he always gives Blitz a moment to shine. The book has been going for a while and Blitz hasn't really done anything yet. Rick always comes to give him a moment, and in this case, I love that moment. I mentioned the whole thing with the giant bowling bag. I loved it, and I love how Rick is always makes it a point to give all the characters a moment to shine, and even though Blitz got the lesser moment this time around, unlike the first book, where we learned more about him than we did about Hearth, and this time it was sort of reversed, but still Blitz had his moment, and it was awesome. I felt so bad for Sam in this book. Like, in the first book, I liked Sam. She wasn't necessarily one of my favorite characters. That's totally changed. I love Sam now, and I feel so bad for her, everything that she has to deal with in order to get to make her dreams come true of being a pilot and you know, graduating and marrying Amir. She has to go through so much crap that it's insane, and I feel so bad for her. She had really high highs in this book, getting to fly and fixing things up with Amir, but then she went through so many lows as well. It's just being controlled by Loki, not knowing what to do with Loki, feeling guilty for having let Loki lose, and then of course Loki jumping out, telling her grandparents about the Norse world and screwing up their brains. It's such a huge mess, and I can't even believe how much crap she has to go through just because who her father is. So it really made me feel a lot for her. She's definitely jumped to near the highest of my favorite characters list. I would probably say she's my second favorite now, under Hearth, probably. That girl is badass, and I can't wait to see her actually put all her doubts aside and fulfill her potential in the last book, hopefully. It hurts my heart that Magnus chopped his hair off. I miss the Kurt Cobain hair! Come on! He was awesome! We'll see in the cover of the next book. I actually hope that the cover of the next book still has him with long hair, because sometimes cover artists do that just because it looks cooler. For example, how in the Dresden Files, all the Harry Dresdens in the covers, they all wear a hat, while in the book, Harry always makes it a point to point out that he doesn't wear hats, and it's kind of awesome. It's just an inside joke. I hope that the third and final book in the Magnus Chase series actually has Magnus still with long hair, because I will miss the long hair. I'm a huge fan of Nirvana, and I kind of like the idea of him looking like Kurt Cobain, I don't know. And last but not least, Alex. Alex Fierro is amazing. I often wondered what effect it would have on the gods' children to actually the way they were conceived, I guess, because if you think about it, I mean, Zeus once became a shower of light in order to have sex with a woman, so why wouldn't Loki, the god of trickery, turn into a woman to have sex with a dude? It's totally possible. Why has nobody ever thought about it? And if the result is an incredible transsexual character like Alex, then I'm all in. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she's transgender, because I don't necessarily think that you have to have an excuse for a person to be transgender. Like, that's not how the world works. But Alex can actually shift physically from girl to boy, or so I thought was what she meant. So I thought that was interesting, and I definitely think that one at least relates directly to Loki's trickery when she was conceived. But either way, I'm glad that there's a transgender character finally in these stories, because I know that Riordan makes it a point to have good, positive representation in his books, and it was about time, really. And maybe if it teaches people a little bit about transgender individuals, then I'm all for it. And Alex is amazing. I love her attitude. I love she doesn't depend on anybody. And she's not exactly open. She actually reminds me a little bit of me in that sense, that she doesn't necessarily volunteer information, but she will tell you things whenever she feels it's necessary for her to voice out something that she thinks might help. So I kind of like that, and oh, as always, yay representation. Let's have more of that, please. And last but not least, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the shipping. First off, I just want to say, and I said this on Twitter already, Mallory and Half-Born are relationship goals. Okay, I love them. They have such a unique relationship that I just get excited to read anything about them, and those little moments that they have, they're adorable. Also, I loved Sam and Amir so much. I love them so much. I can't even, you guys. They're so cute. It also helps that they are sort of a non-standard couple, or they're a couple from a different culture that people don't know much about. People don't really know how engagements work in the Muslim community. And again, it feels like this is Rick trying to teach us a lesson to know more about other cultures. And the best thing about it is that even though it's an arranged marriage and blah blah blah, say what you want about arranged marriages, but Sam and Amir love each other and they want to be together, and that's great. We should support that, you know? So I really do hope that they have a lovely ending. I am very glad that Amir now knows who Sam really is, and that she doesn't have to lie to him anymore, because I do believe that communication is the first step to a great relationship, so they will need that. Just happy that their things are moving along with them. Hopefully they will get married eventually and, you know, live happily. That's great. Also, I am totally shipping Hearth and Inga. I probably shouldn't. And it's maybe because I just really, really want to see Inga again. I don't want her to go away. You know what? I'm a sucker for, you know, puppy love. And it cracks me up that Hearth didn't even know what was happening. Come on. All he wanted in his childhood was his father to love him. And he was rejected. All the while he never even saw that somebody else around him did love him. How ironic is that? I love it. I think Inga is so sweet, and I would love it if, now that she's not bound to Hearth's family anymore as a servant, now that she's free, maybe she can go back and maybe be around Hearth in the future. Even if they don't actually fall in love, at least they can, you know, she can be with him as a friend and as a support for him. I would enjoy that. I don't know that there's anybody else out there who ships them. I haven't checked, but I think they're cute. I'm not gonna die if it doesn't happen, but it would be cute. I don't know. I like them. And I love Inga. And last but not least, there's Magnus and Alex, which I may or may not be already shipping them. I'm not entirely sure. And I say that may or may not because I have a sinking feeling that Rick is planning some kind of trickery with Alex. And that scares me, and I don't want to ship them too hard, because then if I have to be forced to change my mind, that would suck. Seriously, that line about her being like his mother freaked me out so much. I hope she doesn't turn out to somehow be like the reincarnation of his mother or something. Please let it not be that. I guess I could ship them. I definitely wouldn't mind if they got together. I do think that Magnus sort of needs to end up with someone, but that's obviously just the shameless shipper in me. So hey, might as well be Alex? I don't know. I like them together. I think they actually bring out the best in each other, or at least they have so far as we've seen them. So maybe I ship them. I don't know. I'm not ready to actually be like, yes. But I wouldn't mind if it does happen. And if it doesn't happen, then I still want to be able to sort of take a step back and not be hurt by it. I don't know. I reserve the right not to be hurt by Rick Riordan's fucking with my mind. Okay? That was sort of the points that I wanted to hit with this one. I just overall want to say that I really loved this book. There were certain parts that I didn't really care for, but for the most part I really loved it. It's a lovely book. I definitely liked it more than the first one, for sure. I loved the Sword of Summer, but this one takes the cake. It's so epic, and we get to see so much more of the characters, the way they think, The new characters are excellent. It really makes me excited as to where things are going in the last book. I really can't wait to read the last book now. So hopefully the last book will actually live up to expectations, because my expectations are like way high right now. I really enjoyed this book. I definitely recommend, if you haven't read the Magnus Chase series, go ahead and look for it. These books are amazing. Rick Riordan is amazing. He's one of my favorite authors of all time. I love the Percy Jackson series. If you haven't read that, please go read it. I love the Heroes of Olympus series, which is the sequel to Percy Jackson, and I love Magnus Chase. I haven't read the Kane Chronicles. I will. They're on my list, but you saw me how long it took me just to read this one book, so eventually I'll get to them. But I really love these series. I love anything that Rick Riordan writes, so please, if you haven't yet read his books, please start with Percy and go on. You won't be able to put them down. They're really, really, really great books, and amazing characters, excellent plot lines, and very educational at the same time. Yes, they're for kids, but if you're a mythology nerd like me, and yep, that's about it for me today. I managed to keep it short, yay! Watch The World End Tomorrow. Wait for it. Anyway, that's about it from me today. I don't know what next week will be. Hopefully the Game of Thrones one, I'm not sure, but hopefully I'll get the chance to finish watching Game of Thrones this weekend. Graham is doing better too, so we're hoping that she can get out of the hospital this week at some point. Maybe I will get more time then to actually watch Game of Thrones. So maybe that, if not, then I'll let you know. But if you have any suggestions for topics that you want me to talk about, any geeky topic, be it from TV, books, movies, anything like that that's geeky, please feel free to suggest it in the comments. If I know anything about the topic, I'll make sure to add it to my list of videos to make in the future. In the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsoweird with underscores between the words, and I am on Tumblr at girlsoweird with hyphens between the words. See how I did that different? Underscore hyphen. You can find a Facebook page for this vlog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia, and as always, don't forget to visit my main website at FreakingNarnia.com. All my videos are up there in case you want to catch up, so be sure to visit and check it out. Also remember that I have a Redbubble store. The URL is down in the description, where I post typography art that you can use for any sort of merchandise, be it t-shirts, mugs, computer covers, all sorts of stuff down there, so be sure to visit and check it out. I actually just last week uploaded a series inspired by Magnus Chase. It's a series of graphics with the runes and the meanings of the runes, so be sure to check it out, and please do purchase something if you're in the mood. That's it from me today. I will see you guys next week with another talk from all the way in freaking Narnia. Bye, Skofnung swords! Holy attractive biking swords, Batman! Why did I say biking? Oh, it is the goat. Jack's quote, Bifrost. I didn't care much bowling ball when he left Alfheim, telling her grandparents all the Harry Dresden. I'm a huge fan. I've loved with another